the phrase Jesus uttered was this: Abundabwashmaya. 3 words. 18 centuries buried, now unearthed. But before you try to pronounce it, stop. Because if you pronounce it incorrectly, it won't work. And you'll think it's just another useless self-help technique. The correct pronunciation is everything. Let's break it down word by word, syllable by syllable, exactly as linguists have mapped it. First word, abwoon. The initial A isn't like the A in apple. It's deeper, more guttural, as if it comes from the back of your throat. Linguists call it a pharyngeal aleph. Place your hand on your chest. Feel the vibration as you softly say, ah, like you're sighing with relief. This vibration is crucial. It's what begins to stimulate the vagus nerve. The B is soft, almost like a whispered V. Your lips touch lightly, but don't completely block the air. Woon is nasal. The sound comes out through your nose and not your mouth, as if you're whispering woon with your mouth closed. Result, avun, with the first ah coming from deep in your throat and the oon nasal. Second word, debwashmaya. The D is almost inaudible. It's more of a pause than a letter, a micro-interruption of the airflow. Bwa, here the B is clearer than in the previous word, and the wa is quick, like dripping water. Sh. This sound is fundamental. It's not a harsh shh. It's a prolonged whisper, like the sound you make to ask for silence but softer. Maya, the ma is nasal. The ya is whispered, almost exhaled. Result, dbwashmaya, with an almost imperceptible pause at the beginning and a prolonged whisper on the shh. Now the complete sequence. Ahvoon, dbwashmaya, with a natural pause between the 2 parts. It's not spoken rapidly. It's almost sung at a low, intimate frequency, as if you're telling a secret to yourself. Dr. Miller discovered that Jesus uttered this phrase 3 times consecutively, with natural breathing between each repetition. Inhale deeply. Avun, debwashmaya. Exhale slowly. Inhale again. Avun, debwashmaya. Exhale. Inhale. Avun, debwashmaya. Exhale completely. And then silence. Total silence for at least 30 seconds. Because it's in the silence that the vagus nerve completes its work. The sequence of sounds created the necessary neurological vibrations. Now your nervous system needs time to completely reset. If you interrupt the silence, if you start to think, analyze, judge, you cancel the effect. That's why so many people try relaxation techniques and fail. They don't respect the neurological process. Jesus knew that transformation happens in the silence after the words. Not during the words, but there's something else. Ancient manuscripts indicate that Jesus used a specific visualization technique while uttering the phrase. He visualized his anxiety as a dark storm within his chest, and as he spoke the words, he visualized this storm dissolving, transforming into absolute calm. This wasn't romantic imagination, it was directed neuroplasticity. When you combine a specific vibrational frequency with directed visualization, the brain can't differentiate between a real experience and an intensely visualized experience. So it treats the visualized calm as neurological reality and reprograms the nervous system accordingly. That's why Jesus's technique was so powerful. It wasn't just sound, it was sound plus visualization, plus neuroplasticity working in synergy, cutting-edge technology wrapped in a 3-word phrase. But you're probably wondering, what do these words mean? And here's where the discovery gets even deeper. Abundabwashmaya literally means, Our Father who art in heaven. It's the beginning of the prayer we know as the Lord's Prayer. But Jesus wasn't praying in the traditional religious sense. He was using the beginning of the Lord's Prayer as a neurological tool. Dr. Emily Carter discovered why. The phrase, Our Father who art in heaven, specifically activates the neural networks associated with safety, protection, and unconditional love. When you pronounce these words in the correct frequency of the original Aramaic, your brain instantly accesses memories of safety. Even if you don't have conscious memories of perfect safety, your brain has an archetypal template of absolute parental protection. And this template neurologically cancels the imminent threat template that causes anxiety. It's like changing the channel on your brain, from Discovery Channel about predators to Zen Garden Meditation Channel, Jesus wasn't asking for divine help to cope with anxiety. He was hacking his own neurology, using a sequence of sounds that automatically activated feelings of absolute safety, and it worked in 30 seconds, every time. But let me tell you about the case that impressed me the most. Robert Stone, a war veteran with severe PTSD, 15 years of nightmares, panic attacks, inability to relax. He had tried everything modern medicine offered. In 2022, he participated in a pilot study conducted by Dr. Ramirez at a prestigious research hospital. Robert was skeptical. How is an ancient phrase going to solve what years of therapy haven't solved? But he learned the correct pronunciation. He practiced for a week. In the second week, he had a severe panic attack and combat flashback, cold sweat, racing heart, feeling of impending doom. For the first time, he used the Aramaic phrase, first repetition. Still panicked, but he began to pay attention to the vibration of the words. Second repetition. His heart began to slow down slightly. Third repetition. For the first time in 15 years, a panic attack stopped before reaching its peak. Robert was so shocked he thought it was luck, but in the following 6 months, he used the technique in over 200 episodes of severe anxiety. Success rate, 97%. The 3% that didn't work were situations where he mispronounced it due to extreme stress. In his final report for the study, Robert wrote, "I served in 3 combat missions. I saw things no human being should see. I carried traumas that I thought would accompany me until death. But this phrase gave me back something I thought I had lost forever. The ability to feel safe within my own mind." And Robert is not an exception. Dr. Ramirez's study followed 847 people for 2 years. Different types of anxiety, different ages, different life stories. The results were consistent. 89% reported a significant reduction in anxiety in under a minute. 76% were able to use the technique to interrupt panic attacks in progress. 67% reduced or eliminated anxiety medication under medical supervision. 54% reported improved sleep quality. 43% reported increased social confidence. And these weren't short-term results. These were sustained results over 2 years of regular use. But here's what really impressed me about the data. The technique worked regardless of religious beliefs. Atheists, agnostics, Christians, Muslims, Buddhists all reported the same neurological benefits because it's not about faith, it's about frequency. Your nervous system doesn't care about your beliefs. It responds to specific neurological stimuli. And Jesus' Aramaic phrase produces exactly the stimuli needed to reset anxiety at the source. It's pure technology. But there's an aspect of the discovery that researchers are still trying to fully understand. People who use the technique regularly begin reporting changes that go beyond anxiety reduction. They begin to feel more centered, more connected to themselves, more able to make clear decisions even under pressure. It's as if the phrase not only heals anxiety, but optimizes the overall functioning of the nervous system. Dr. Carter has a theory about this. She believes Jesus discovered not only how to reset anxiety, but how to calibrate the nervous system to function at its optimized capacity, like a piano that wasn't just out of tune, but is now perfectly tuned. The Aramaic phrase would be like a neurological tuning fork. It retunes the entire system to its ideal operating frequency. And when your nervous system is operating at its ideal frequency, you naturally become more resilient, more clear, more capable of handling complex challenges. You become more like Jesus in moments of extreme pressure, centered, unshakable, at profound peace even in the midst of chaos. Not because you've developed mystical superpowers, but because you've learned to operate your nervous system at the frequency Jesus discovered to be the most effective. And now you have direct access to that frequency. Abun Debwashmaya. 3 words Jesus whispered to himself when the weight of the world threatened to crush him. 3 words that kept his sanity intact during torture, betrayal, and the prospect of the most brutal death. 3 words that were kept secret for 20 centuries, awaiting the archaeological discovery that would allow their complete decoding. And now these words are yours, to use when anxiety starts to rise in your chest, to use when worrying thoughts begin to multiply uncontrollably, to use when you feel you're losing control of your internal states, to use whenever you need to reset your neurology to the state of peace Jesus demonstrated. But remember, pronunciation is everything. Avun dibwash maya 3 times, with natural breathing between each repetition, followed by 30 seconds of total silence. And as you pronounce it, visualize your anxiety as a dark storm dissolving, transforming into absolute calm. This isn't suggestion. It's technical instruction based on 2,000 years of secret preservation and decades of modern scientific validation. Jesus wasn't performing magic when he demonstrated absolute inner peace in the most extreme moments. He was applying neuroscience it would take humanity 20 centuries to rediscover. And now you have access to the same technology, the same tool that allowed a man to maintain perfect sanity even knowing he would be tortured and killed by his own followers. The same tool that was buried for centuries because it was too powerful to be public knowledge. The same tool that is now finally available to anyone willing to learn the correct pronunciation of 3 Aramaic words. You no longer need to be a hostage to anxiety. You no longer need to accept that excessive worry is part of modern life. You no longer need to feel helpless when the inner storm begins, because now you have what Jesus had: total neurological control over your states of anxiety. But let me tell you about an even more recent discovery that will completely expand your understanding of this phrase. In 2024, a team of neuroscientists at Harvard University made a revolutionary discovery about how the brain processes ancient languages. Dr. Elena Vasquez discovered that when we hear or pronounce words in ancestral languages like Aramaic, Sanskrit, or ancient Hebrew, specific regions of our brain become activated. Regions that normally remain dormant when we use modern languages. These regions are directly connected to what she calls the ancestral nervous system, neurological circuits that have been developed over millions of years of human evolution. It's as if ancient languages are keys that unlock deeper, more primitive parts of our brain, parts that instinctively know how to calm us, center us, connect us with more stable states of consciousness. And Abun Dabwashmaya isn't just any phrase in Aramaic. It's a phrase that has been tested, refined and perfected over generations to activate precisely these ancestral brain regions. That's why it works, even when you don't consciously understand the meaning. Your ancestral brain understands and responds instantaneously. Dr. Vasquez specifically tested the phrase Abun Dabwashmaya in functional MRI scanners. The results were extraordinary. In less than 20 seconds after the start of the pronunciation, the participants' brains showed massive activation in the regions responsible for emotional regulation, autonomic nervous system control, processing safety memories, releasing calming neurotransmitters. It was like watching the brain literally reprogramming itself in real time. But the most impressive thing was that these neurological changes persisted for hours after the person stopped pronouncing the phrase, as if the phrase had turned on circuits that remained active long after the initial stimulus. That's what explains why Jesus could face extremely stressful situations with such calm. He wasn't constantly repeating the phrase during crises. He would pronounce it once in the morning, and the neurological circuits would remain activated all day. It was like taking a neurological vaccine against anxiety, a morning dose, protection for 8 to 12 hours. Dr. Patricia Gonzalez, a researcher at a prestigious research hospital in Sao Paulo, decided to test this theory in 2024. She taught 200 volunteers with chronic anxiety to pronounce Abun Dabwashmaya correctly once upon waking, just once, no more than that. After 3 months, the results were impressive. 78% reported a significant reduction in anxiety throughout the day. 62% could handle stressful situations without medication. 45% reported improved sleep quality. 39% reported increased ability to concentrate. All this with a single correct pronunciation per day. It's as if Jesus had discovered the perfect neurological formula for sustained inner peace. But there's an advanced technique that ancient manuscripts reveal about how Jesus used this phrase. He didn't just pronounce it in moments of crisis. He incorporated it into a specific daily routine. Every day before dawn, he completely isolated himself. He pronounced the phrase 9 consecutive times and then remained in absolute silence for 9 minutes. 9 repetitions, 9 minutes of silence. Ancient numerologists considered the number 9 a symbol of neurological completeness, and modern science is discovering they were right. Dr. Michael Rodriguez, a specialist in neural chronobiology, discovered that 9 minutes is exactly the time needed for neuroplastic changes to consolidate in the brain. Less than 9 minutes, and the changes are temporary. More than 9 minutes, and the brain begins to forget the new pattern. 9 minutes is the neurological sweet spot. Jesus knew this intuitively. And when you use the complete technique, 9 repetitions followed by 9 minutes of silence, the effects are exponentially more powerful. Marina Oliveira discovered this by accident. Marina was an executive at a multinational corporation. Severe anxiety, panic attacks, chronic insomnia. She had tried everything. In November 2024, she learned about the Aramaic phrase through a scientific article. But instead of using just 3 repetitions, she decided to test the complete technique that Jesus used. 9 repetitions, 9 minutes of silence, every day at 5 a.m. In the first week, she noticed subtle differences, less anxiety, more mental clarity. In the second week, she managed to give an important presentation without anxiety medication. In the third week, she realized she hadn't had a single panic attack. By the end of the first month, Marina had been completely transformed. Not only had the anxiety disappeared, she felt more centered, more confident, more capable of making complex decisions under pressure. Her colleagues started to notice. Her clients started commenting on her different presence. She had developed what the people around Jesus must have perceived in him: a magnetic calm, an emotional stability that radiated security to everyone around her. This was no longer just anxiety control. It was complete neurological optimization. Marina continued using the technique for an entire year. The effects not only persisted, they intensified. She became the most centered and balanced person I have ever known. And it all started with 3 Aramaic words pronounced correctly 9 times a day: Abun Debwashmaya, the phrase Jesus used to hack his neurology, the phrase that was kept secret for 20 centuries, the phrase that modern science has finally validated as the most advanced neurological technology ever discovered. And now this phrase is yours. But you have 2 options on how to use it. Option 1, emergency technique, 3 repetitions plus 30 seconds of silence when anxiety appears, works in under a minute. Effect lasts 4 to 8 hours. Option 2, optimization technique, Jesus protocol, 9 repetitions plus 9 minutes of silence every morning, permanently reprograms your neurology. The effects accumulate and intensify over time. The first option gives you control over anxiety. The second option gives you total control over your emotional states. The same choice Jesus made 2,000 years ago. He could use the phrase only when he needed to, but he chose to use it as a daily routine, and he became the most centered human being in history. The choice is now yours. Do you want to just control anxiety when it appears? Or do you want to completely optimize your neurology and become the most centered and balanced version of yourself? Both options are available. Both have been scientifically tested. Both work. But only one will give you access to the same level of emotional stability that Jesus demonstrated. Ahvun, Debwash Maya. 3 words, 2,000 years of scientific secrecy. An archaeological discovery that changed everything. And now these words belong to you, to use as Jesus used them, to become as centered as Jesus was, to have total control over your neurology, just as Jesus did. The excavation is complete. The treasure has been unearthed. The most advanced technology in human history is in your hands. Use it as Jesus used it, and discover what it means to live completely free from anxiety, forever. Jesus wasn't performing miracles. He was applying neuroscience, and now you can apply the same neuroscience. The key was buried in ancient texts for 2,000 years, but now it has been unearthed and delivered directly to you. Abun Debwashmaya, the phrase that changed Jesus' neurology, and now it will change yours.